Mary Stewart, the Queen of Suspense, wrote 14 romantic suspense novels, and today I'm going to tell you about each one of them. I'm going to give you their title, their publication date, the protagonist, give you a sentence or two summary of the story, and let you know what I feel is the overriding tone of the book so you can better choose which of her books you read first and in what order you read them. And, maybe there's one or two you choose not to read, though I can't really imagine that. Hi, I'm Kim, and this is an oasis of books. This is video number 2 in my Mary Stewart series for the new reading event, Suspense in October. Now, sometimes it's said Mary had 15 books of romantic suspense, and that's because they're referring to this book. The 15th novel is not really a novel, though. It's a bind-up of Mary's novella, only 68 pages long, and a short story she actually wrote about 8 years previous to it that has the same protagonist in it, Perdita, and it's only 45 pages long. So together they make up the 15th book, but they're not romantic suspense. No, they do have romance, they do have lots of adventure, and I'm not saying there's no tension involved, because there definitely is. But these stories are very different, not just in length, than the first 14 romantic suspense novels that Mary Stewart wrote. And we'll get to this book at a future time. But let's start with the first book that Mary Stewart ever published, Madam, Will You Talk? Put out in 1955, set in the south of France in sun-drenched Provence. This book features a protagonist named Charity. She's a war widow, and she goes on holiday with her artist friend. And at the beginning of the vacation, she meets and befriends a 13-year-old boy who she quickly discovers is in desperate need of her protection. Now, the overriding tone of this book is one of adventure, building suspense and tension, and extreme danger, both to the boy and to Charity. Book number 2, Wildfire at Midnight. Published in 1956, this book is set on the Isle of Skye in Scotland, and it's set in 1953, which was the coronation year in England. Our protagonist, Gianetta, is a fashion model, and she wants to get away from the crowds in London at this time, so she books herself a remote hotel in the mountains on the Isle of Skye. Once there, though, she finds herself involved in a murder mystery. Lots of suspects, including her ex-husband who shows up, and lots of danger. The overriding tone of this book is definitely Gothic. What should be an idyllic location is anything but. The mountains all around them and the weather play a big role, as it's always gray and foggy and misty and rainy. It almost feels like a modern-day thriller, if not for the exotic location, the literary allusions, and, well, all the smoking. Now, while I own 10 of these 14 books, 8 in physical form and 2 in ebook form until I can find them somewhere used, there are 4 I have not yet located. 3 of them I've now borrowed from the library. One of them I haven't yet found, but I really want to. It was a favorite of mine when I was a teen, and I want to reread it. It's book number 3, Thunder on the Right. This book was published in 1957 and takes place in the French Pyrenees. It features Jennifer as our protagonist, and at the beginning of the book, as in a lot of Mary Stewart's books, Jennifer goes on holiday. But her reason for going is not to take a break, to relax, or have fun. Her reason is all about her cousin. Her cousin has joined a convent, and Jenny can't figure out why. So she's going to go visit her and find out. When she gets there, however, her cousin has disappeared. In fact, it appears she died in a car accident. But was it an accident or was it murder? Jenny won't rest until she finds out. This book has strong modern Gothic elements, isolation, stormy weather, and a convent setting. What more could you ask? Book number 4, one of my absolute favorites from my teenage years, was 9 Coaches Waiting. This was published in 1958, and it's set in the French Alps at an old French chateau. Linda Martin is our protagonist. She is a governess come to the chateau to help with a young boy there who seems all alone. In fact, he is an orphan. Linda's an orphan too. They bond, and she quickly discovers he is in grave danger, and of course she needs to protect him. The family at the chateau is very strange. Linda doesn't know who she can trust. But if I can remember the male lead's name, Raoul, 4.5 decades later, that tells you something about the chemistry between these two. He's mysterious and potentially quite dangerous, but he draws her like a moth to the flame. Now, the overriding tone to this book is a very Jane Eyre-like feel. Dark, creepy, definitely Gothic, lots of tension building throughout, and also lots of literary allusions. Book number 5, My Brother Michael, set in Greece amongst the ancient ruins with Mount Parnassus nearby. Our protagonist is Camilla. Camilla meets up with Simon and discovers he is investigating his brother's death. His brother died 14 years earlier during World War II. She tries to help him and finds herself immersed in a dangerous mystery linked to smuggling. Now, the overriding tone to this book is a fast-paced adventure with a ghostly element and a real treasure hunt feel, and extreme danger from the criminals. Book number 6 I just finished reading. I'm not even sure I read it when I was a teenager. It did seem quite familiar, but it wasn't one I had reread many times like some of them, and I enjoyed it thoroughly. This is The Ivy Tree, published in 1961, set in Northumberland in the English countryside where the Roman walls went up and down through the hills right next to the forests. In this book, we have the protagonist, Mary Gray, a Canadian, who agrees to impersonate Annabelle, a presumed dead heiress, so that she can secure a valuable property and family inheritance for someone, as well as a large sum of money for herself. Having to face friends and family who knew Annabelle quite well 8 years previously makes the tension very high for Mary Gray. Suspicion and danger lurk everywhere. And the overriding tone to this book, definitely Gothic. Lots of dark, stormy weather, old mysteries and old loves resurfacing, family secrets and deception abound. Book number 7 is The Moon Spinners. This was published in 1962 and is set on the lush, gorgeous Greek island of Crete. In this story, our protagonist is Nicola. She comes across an injured man and tries to help him, and then finds out he has a lost companion, so she tries to help with that too. What she doesn't know is there's actually a conspiracy plot afoot linked to smuggling, and soon she finds herself being hotly pursued. Now, this book feels like a very fast-paced, cozy mystery, but with lots of strong suspense as Nicola tries to escape from the bad guys. This book was also made into a movie starring Hayley Mills, and most people who've seen it like it, although it does, of course, veer off from the book quite a bit. Book number 8 is This Rough Magic, published in 1964. This story is also set on a Greek island. This time it's Corfu. Our protagonist is Lucy, a young actress who goes to Corfu to visit her sister, a very rich sister. And so she's having a great time swimming out in the sea, playing with the dolphins, when she's nearly shot. See the dolphins? In addition to dolphins, this book features an elderly Shakespearean actor who thinks the island was the original setting for The Tempest. Also, the book has smuggling and murder. Yes, what started out as an idyllic vacation for Lucy quickly transforms into a violence-filled mystery. And the overriding tone is sinister, with a backdrop of political intrigue. Book number 9 is Airs Above the Ground, published in 1965 and set in Austria. This book's a little different because our protagonist, Vanessa, who is a vet, is also married. Yes, not a single lady who's out for romance, but a married woman who's having a few problems with her husband. So Vanessa's watching the news one evening and sees her husband in a fire in Austria, even though he supposedly was at a business meeting in Sweden. So she rushes to Austria, wanting to make sure he's safe and also confront him about his deception. Instead, she finds an amazing circus featuring the gorgeous, graceful dancing Lipizzaner stallions, as well as international mystery, espionage, and danger. Now, books number 10 and 11 mark a change in Mary Stewart's writing. They're still romantic suspense novels. They still have murder in them, but they're different. The first of these is The Gabriel Hounds. This book was published in 1967, first set in Syria and then quickly moving to Lebanon. It features Christy as our protagonist. She's a rich only spoiled child, but she's a great character. I love her. And her cousin, Charles, who in the American version of the book, he's a second or third cousin. In the British version, he's a first cousin. This created a problem for many readers because they end up getting together, and that's not really a thing most people like. So that's a bit different, but it's different in another way too. It has the legend of the Gabriel hounds referred to within it, and the Gabriel hounds being the human-headed dogs that howled at night, and if they did, doom and death were coming on the household. The cries were actually purported to be from birds flying overhead, but there are dogs in this book, and the creepy Gabriel hound legendary factor is definitely there. Now, Christy and Charles, being on separate independent vacations, unexpectedly meet up and on a lark decide to go visit unannounced, which is completely against the rules, their great Aunt Harriet, who lives in a crumbling old palace out in the middle of a desert in Lebanon. This is a definite comparison reference by Mary Stewart to Lady Hester Stanhope, who I had heard of before, and I knew the general, skeleton of her story, but I did look it up to learn more. Let me just read you a couple of lines. The legend of Lady Hester Stanhope revolves around her life as a daring British aristocrat, adventurer, and pioneer archaeologist who defied convention by traveling to the Middle East, living like a desert queen, and conducting one of the first modern archaeological digs in the Holy Land, searching for buried treasure from a medieval Italian manuscript. She never found the hoard of gold, but she did uncover significant artifacts and established a legendary independent existence in Lebanon before her death in 1839. Now, there's a lot more to her story, and I'm sure I could find books that tell me even more than this printout does. But the fact is, Mary Stewart inserted Great Aunt Harriet into the Gabriel hounds, and she seems a whole lot like Lady Hester Stanhope. Very strange, very independent, very stubborn, and Christy and Charles go to check on her. They're just basically curious, but once they manage to get into the complex, they can't get out. They soon realize that something very mysterious and something very dangerous is going on in Great Aunt Harriet's household, and they need to figure out what before it gets them. The tone of this book, can be a little cringe with the cousin element, but if you can get past that, it has an Arabian Nights sort of feel. And yes, tons of tension. Book number 11 is one of my old favorites, Touch Not the Cat. Now, this book by Mary Stewart is the first to incorporate a real paranormal element. Set in England at Ashley Court, which is an old decaying family estate. Our protagonist is Bryony, who at the beginning of the book is traveling abroad, but she's warned telepathically of her father's unexpected death. So she rushes back to the family ancestral home, and his last words to her are a cryptic warning of danger. She has to figure out what it means amidst a lot of hidden secrets, mistrust and suspicion within the family, and the inherited trait of telepathy. The overriding tone is very Gothic, a dark, creepy atmosphere, slow moving, lots of tension, a real gripping murder mystery. Now we're down to the last 3 books, and remember, I told you they're different. So this is Thornyhold, book number 12, published in 1988. Which, yes, is 12 years after Touch Not the Cat was published. And Mary Stewart's writing, while still being very strong, very vivid, wonderful descriptions, great characters, all that suspense and mystery, it's all still there. But things are a bit different. They're a bit softer, a bit slower, a bit gentler. So this book is set in the 1940s in the wild forested countryside of Wiltshire, England. The main character is Gilly, and she finds that she has inherited a mysterious house from her cousin, who, it turns out, in addition to being the village herbalist, is also a witch. Gilly learns that the house is protected by magic, and she discovers that she might just have some of these magical abilities within herself as well. This book is all about self-empowerment as we watch Gilly battle and conquer her own insecurities and heal. The overriding tone is like a fairy tale almost, but there is still that dark, mysterious house with its secrets, slightly Gothic feel to it. There's suspense, there's mystery, but also lots of wonderful animals and a beautiful, useful herbal garden. Just a really lovely book. Book number 13 is The Stormy Petrel, published in 1991 and set on the Scottish island of Moyla. Hope I'm saying that right. This island is a paradise for wildflowers and birds. In fact, the petrel is a vulnerable seabird that spends most of its waking hours flying just above the waves of the sea and then nests on shore. The protagonist in this story is Rose, and she decides to go on a retreat to this remote, peaceful island because she's a writer and she needs a break. She wants to focus on her creativity in a relaxed setting, and she's meeting her brother there. He's a fisherman, so while she's writing, he'll go off fishing. But her brother is delayed, and a violent storm ensues, and two men show up to take refuge in her little cottage during this storm. Now, these two men seem very suspicious to Rose. She doesn't know if she can trust them. In fact, she feels like she definitely can't. The atmosphere within the cottage is becoming more and more dangerous, more and more tense, and she really doesn't know what to do. Now, the overriding tone to this book is still romantic suspense, and definitely still somewhat Gothic given the remote location and the stormy weather. But again, it's a softer, slower, gentler suspense, and no murder that I know of. This is one of the few I haven't read yet, but I'm sure hoping to get to it this month. And finally, book number 14, we have Rose Cottage. This was published in 1997, 6 years after the previous book, The Stormy Petrel. Now, Rose Cottage is set in England in 1947, just after the end of World War II. Our protagonist is Kate. She is a war widow, and she's returning to her childhood home in the English countryside. Now, the purpose of her visit is to gather some important family papers, but she can't find them. They're missing. And Kate also notices that the villagers are doing an awful lot of loud gossiping about her family's hidden secrets. Now, what's the overriding tone to this book? It's a very light mystery, very light suspense, but mostly a cozy, nostalgic book with an unexpected chance at romance. I hope you've enjoyed hearing about all 14 of Mary Stewart's romantic suspense novels. And please let me know in the comments below, have you read any Mary Stewart's in the past or now? And which are your favorites? If you haven't read Mary Stewart yet, which ones of these books that I talked about strike your fancy? What do you think you'll read first? Let me know. I've already enjoyed getting back to Mary Stewart this month, and I still have 3 weeks left in October to read more of her. I will be bringing you more videos about Mary, about her writing life, about her, day-to-day real life, and about what she wrote other than romantic suspense novels, because she did write other things. Until my next video, though, I'm wishing you lots of fun, romantic, mysterious, suspense-filled reading with just as much tension as you want.